Hey guys, this is Alan, and in today's episode I'm going to show you how to propagate your own fig cuttings. Figs are one of the easiest plants to grow out there. When propagating any plant, the two main questions you need to ask yourself is, when is the best time to propagate it, and what is the best propagation method to use? Now, for question number one, figs are deciduous plants. What that means is they go to sleep in the winter time. They drop all their leaves and they go into dormancy. The good thing about dormancy is the plant will actually completely, like almost 100%, reduce its energy consumption. What that means for you is you can make mistakes, you can make cuttings, you can do anything to the plant, and the plant will not react to those mistakes immediately. So you can make some mistakes and not kill your plant immediately. Can you propagate your plant during the growing season? Can you propagate it any other time of the year? Yes, you can, but you have to understand, when your figs are actively growing, if you make a cutting and then you make any mistakes, that cutting will dry out on you a lot faster during the growing season than it will during the winter time. This cutting right here, actually, it's a branch that broke off my tree. It's an Italian honey fig. This branch was actually laying on the ground for about 3 weeks before I noticed it. I picked it up, I checked if it was alive or dead, and then it's still alive, surprisingly. And the only reason why it's still alive is because our temperatures are not extreme yet, and this branch was actually laying in the shade. It was just starting to wake up, so I need to hurry up and get this actually rooted. But anyways, that's the main reason why you want to propagate your figs during the winter time. And question number two, what's the best propagation method to use? For figs, what I like to use personally are cuttings. I like to make cuttings. Cuttings are very easy to do. If you have a plant, you can make tons of cuttings yourself. If you have a friend, you can get cuttings from your friend. Now let's say you don't have a fig and you want to start growing your own figs. You can go online. You can buy them. People sell them during the winter time all the time. So it's very easy to get cuttings. Can you do air layers? Can you do air grafting? Can you propagate them using any other propagation method? Yes, you can. But personally, I like to use cuttings, and that is what I'm going to show you today. Now, let's go ahead and get started, since we know when's the best time to propagate it and what's the best propagation method. The first thing you're gonna need, guys, is you're gonna need a branch. Like this one right here. This one broke off my tree a few weeks ago, so I'm gonna go ahead and use this right now. Now, the main question that you're probably asking yourself right now is, how big of a cutting do you need? The size is irrelevant, but just for my personal use, I like my cuttings to be about the diameter of a pencil, which is this one right here. Can you go bigger, like this one? Can you go even bigger than that, or smaller than this? Yes, you can. There are no rules in gardening, guys. So what I'm showing you today, what I'm trying to teach you today, is how to increase your chances of being successful. There's no 100% in gardening. I'm not going to lie to you. You may fail, you may succeed, but if you follow what I'm trying to show you today, your chances of being successful are gonna go way up. So, you need a branch. Remember, you're gonna get your cuttings during the winter time. Now, the second step you're gonna need to do is you're gonna have to make some cuttings. Now, we know what size of cuttings you're gonna use, and now we're gonna go ahead and make the cuttings themselves. So usually when making your cuttings, the main question that I see people ask all the time is, how long of a cutting do you need? That is irrelevant too, guys. It's not about the length of your cutting, it's about how many nodes your cutting has. If you're not sure what a node is, it's usually where your leaves come out of, like this one right here. There's one node there, there's one right there, another one there, another one there, there. They're everywhere. Now, ideally, what I like to do, guys, I like to have at least 3 nodes below the potting mix and at least 1 to 2 nodes above the potting mix. So total minimum nodes that I like to have is 5 or 6. Can you have more? Yes, you can. Can you have less? Yes, you can. Remember, no rules in gardening, guys. If you don't have anything, use whatever you have. It's better than not doing anything. If you want to see the world's smallest fig cutting, I got another video where I made a few months ago where I showed how small a fig cutting can be. I believe that fig cutting only had 2 nodes. One was below the potting mix, and then the other one was above it, and it was only about an inch long, and I got it to root. So yes, you can go small, you can go big. Now the main problems you're gonna have when making your cuttings, guys, is the smaller branches, if they're too small, they tend to dry out a lot faster. Now, if your branches are bigger, they tend to take longer to root out. So those will be the only problems you have when you go too small or you go too big. Another thing is, the smaller the branch is, usually the closer the nodes are going to be. You can tell right here, the nodes are very close together. But then, if I flip it over, you can see the bigger branch right here. The nodes are farther apart. So usually, if you're gonna have bigger cuttings, then obviously you're gonna have longer cuttings. If you're gonna have smaller branches, then you can get away with having shorter cuttings. So let's go ahead and make some cuttings right now, guys. Now, the length that I like to have my cuttings, usually besides the nodes, it's gonna be between 6 inches to 12 inches. The reason for that, guys, is because I use the baggie method, and my bags are about 12 inches long. They're 4 inches wide by 12 inches long, so I want my cutting to fit in there at least halfway through. It's not even deeper into the potting mix. So that's the main reason why I make my cuttings 6 to 12 inches long, and all you gotta do is eyeball it. Now, with figs, guys, there's a virus out there. It's called the mosaic virus. Now, this virus, what it does, it discolors the leaves of your figs, and then it will also may affect your fruiting. Now, is it going to kill your figs? No. Most figs out there have it anyway. So, especially when propagating figs, what I like to do, I like to sterilize my pruning or cutting tools. So, when I go in between trees, if one tree has a virus and another one doesn't, I'm not gonna spread the virus around. Now remember, if your trees are healthy, even if it has a virus, it's not gonna kill your trees, so do not worry about it, all right? But just to be safe, go ahead and sterilize your pruners. You can use alcohol, you can use bleach, you can use vinegar. Anything that kills viruses will work. And all you gotta do is just wipe it really quickly. I already did this pruners, so I don't have to worry about it. Now, when making a cutting, guys, the main thing you want to do is you want to measure and see how long of a cutting you want. So I know my bags are 12 inches long, and I want my cutting to stick out of the bag a little bit. So I'm probably gonna cut it all the way to this node right here. And when making the cutting, you want to go down and you want to cut. I know a lot of people tell you to cut it at an angle. There's a certain way that you have to follow, because otherwise you're gonna fail. No, guys, I'm sorry. I propagate hundreds and hundreds of cuttings every year. I have never followed a specific cutting method besides cutting right below the node, just like this. And here's the cutting, guys. Now make sure you remember which way is up, because you don't want to stick them in the potting mix upside down. I've done it before, and then guess what? It's not gonna kill your cutting. What happened when I stuck that upside down, the roots came out, and then the nodes started sprouting leaves downward, but then they started going up. So it's no big deal, you know. Even if you make a mistake like that, you're not gonna kill your plants. Plants are smart, and if they want to live, they are going to. Now I have the first one, so now what I do, I like to just use that as a guide, and then I make my other cuttings. Always cut below the node, and the reason for that, guys, is because this section right here that doesn't have any nodes, what usually happens if you stick that below the potting mix, it's just going to dry out, and then that may cause rot, mold, all kinds of stuff that you don't want below the soil level. So that's the main reason why I want to cut it right below the node, because I know that's where the roots are going to come out of, and then, you know, any other part of the branch, it's just not going to get in the way below the soil. So there we go. I got 3 cuttings right there. And then, you know, I think I'm just gonna keep this one as is. Now I know my node, my last node is right there, and then this piece right here, we actually cut it maybe a few days ago, so you can tell the bottom's dried out. So just to cut that section off and bring it closer to the node, I'm just gonna go ahead and cut right below it. just like that. And you can see that part's green, it's fresh, it's ready to be rooted. So we got our cuttings now, guys. Now, the method I'm going to show you today is going to be the baggie method. A lot of people use it, so it's no news. I didn't invent it. So the bags that I use are poly bags. They're 4 inches wide by 12 inches long. They come in different sizes. Whatever size you want to use, it doesn't matter. Now I'll post the links in the description so you can see where to buy them. And then, you know, if you want to use those, you can. If you don't, use whatever you have, it will work. So the bags that I have right now are these ones right here. Now, the next thing you got to worry about is rooting hormone, guys. So the rooting hormone that I use, especially when I'm doing a lot of cuttings, I use Dip and Grow. The reason I like this rooting hormone is because this bottle right here will make thousands and thousands of cuttings, because it's a concentrate, and then all you need is just a little bit and a little bit of water, and then you dilute it down, follow the instructions, and then this right here will do tons of cuttings, a lot of them. So yes, so that's the rooting hormone. Do you need it? Is it a requirement? No, it's not. All trees have their own rooting hormone in them. And then what happens when you make a cut, the branches are smart. They will send the rooting hormone towards the bottom part of the cuttings, whatever it's dark and moist a little bit, and then that will promote root growth, and then that's where your roots are gonna grow out of. But you know, these guys that have bark on them, so before you dip them in the rooting hormone, guys, what I like to do, I like to scar the bark just like this. The minute you see green, even if you see white, that is good enough. So you just want to make a few scratches on your on the bark of your cutting, just like that. And then the next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna dip them in your liquid rooting hormone, just like this. Now the instructions on this specific rooting hormone, it says to keep them in there for about 5 to 10 seconds. So I just like to stir it in there just like this, you know, 5-10 seconds, and you're good to go. Do not keep it in there longer than that, and do not make a concentrate that's too high, because that can actually hinder root growth rather than help you. But anyways, I can tell these guys are wet, and then that's all they need. Now what I like to do, I like to set the cuttings to the side while I get everything else ready. Now guys, the next thing you're gonna need is your potting mix. If you forget everything out of this video, guys, remember this one, because this will help you greatly. And the minute I actually realized this, we have been able to propagate so many cuttings, because I'll explain it to you in a minute. Now the potting mix that I like to use, guys, is a straight 100% vermiculite. Vermiculite is an inorganic material. What that means is mold will not grow in there, fungus will not grow in there either. And usually, if you're watching my video right now, you probably tried propagating figs in the past, and I would assume that you're watching me because you haven't been successful. And I have tried it too, guys. I used coco coir in the past, I've used peat moss, I've tried sterilizing it, but usually, always, since fig cuttings take a little longer than other plants to root, you may get mold, you may get fungus, and you may get to your fig cutting to root, but then you lose it to mold and fungus. I have lost hundreds and hundreds of fig cuttings that way. But the minute that I switched to vermiculite 100%, I haven't had any issues at all, guys. So the main key with this right here, you need to make sure that it's moist. You do not want it to be wet. How can you tell the difference? Well, I don't know if the camera is going to show this or not, but this vermiculite right here, it's a little moist. When you touch it, you can feel the water, but when you make a fist, it doesn't really clump up. Now, let me go ahead and wet this real quick, and then show you the difference between being moist and wet. Alright, so let me go ahead and put some water in here. The key with getting this moist is you don't want to wet it completely. You just want to put some water in there, and then you want to mix it up. Now before I mix it up fully, I'm going to show you what actually wet looks like. So if your potting mix squirts water just like that and clumps completely when you make a fizz, that is too wet, guys. You don't want to use this. And the problem with this is when you put this in the little baggies like this, you're gonna enclose the whole thing, and then the only way for the water to escape is gonna be through the root system of your plant, absorbing the water and evaporating it through its leaves. Your plant's not gonna have roots for a few months, and then this wet potting mix is gonna sit against the cutting for months in the dark, and then that may cause trunk rot, and your cutting may rot before you even get any roots out of it. So this is the main reason why you don't want your potting mix to be soaking wet. You want it to be moist. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna mix this up real quick. I think it's better to have it a little drier than for it to be completely soaking wet, because you can fix dryness. All you gotta do is just add a little bit of water in the future, and then you're good to go. Now if it's wet, you're gonna have to completely remove the cutting out of the bag, and you're gonna have to fix it and then redo everything. So make sure that it's not too wet. So I got this mixed up in here. Now let me show you the difference. Now you can tell the potting mix is actually I don't know if you can tell, if you can see it or not, but it looks drier. When I make a fizz, it's not literally squirting water, but it's also loose. Now this is a tiny bit too wet, so I'm just gonna mix it up a little more in there, because most of the bottom of the container is actually dry. And then that should be okay. Alright, so we got that mixed up in there, and this is good to go. Now what I like to do next is I like to get a funnel just like this one right here. You can buy this at the dollar store for $1, and then that will make filling up your bags a lot easier. Just slide the bag underneath the funnel, hold it with your hands just like this, and then you're just gonna fill up your bag with potting mix. What I like to do, I like to fill it maybe almost all the way to the top. I like to leave a little gap in there so I can tie the bag up once the cutting is in there. Now my cuttings have been sitting in here, guys, and then that's fine if your rooting hormone dries on the cutting. It's not a big deal, so don't worry about it. Now the next thing you're gonna do, you're gonna stick your cutting in there just like this, and you're gonna go all the way down, as far down as you can. Now remember, you want at least 3 nodes under the potting mix minimum to increase your chances of being successful. Now personally, sometimes I have 3, sometimes I have 6. The more the better. So if you have a lot of cuttings and you can make your cuttings a little longer, go ahead and do that, guys. So I like to stick my cutting in there all the way at least halfway through the bag. If you go down a little, farther down, it's fine, but you want it at least halfway down, just like this. Then the next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna compact it down by pushing the potting mix towards the bottom of the bag, just like this. Then you're gonna twist it, and then after you twist it, you're gonna get some zip ties. These are gardening zip ties. You can get this anywhere. You can use twine, you can use whatever to tie, you can use rubber bands, but then you want to make sure you twist it all the way around to prevent the air from coming out, and then you're going to tie it up just like this. And here you have your first thick cutting. Now what's the next step, guys? The next step is very important, just like the potting mix, and that is If you're doing this during the winter time, which you probably should, you're gonna take this inside your house where the temperatures are about at least, I would say, 60 degrees consistently. I'm talking about day and night. And then you're gonna put it in an area that is dark. You don't want too much light hitting the cutting because you don't want your cutting to wake up because of the warmer temperatures and the light, because that will make it wake up too soon. And then if it wakes up and then it starts growing leaves and no roots yet, then your cutting will actually spend all the energy stored in the little cutting, and then before it even grows roots, it will run out of energy and dry out. So that is the key. Bring it indoors or in the garage if your temperatures in your garage are at least 60 degrees consistently, day and night. If they're hotter, that's okay too. Not too hot though. You don't want it like 80, 90 degrees. That will be too hot, guys. And then this cutting right here, if you take it during the winter time, it will usually take about, I would say, depending on your temperatures, it's always about the temperatures. And every cutting is a little different. So you're looking at about 8 to 12 weeks. Now, you stick it in there, and then I would say, you know, once you put them in there the first time, I wouldn't even check them for at least 3 to 4 weeks. And then after the first month or so, go out there and check them. The reason I like the clear bags is because you can visually see if you have roots in there. And then that makes it so much easier to check your plants. And then if you can see the moisture building up against the bag, so you can tell there is some water content in there. Now, if after a month you go to it, you check it, and you see no water anywhere, that means your cutting is probably a little bit too dry. At that point, you're gonna untwist this, and you're gonna add a little bit of water in there, not too much because you don't want it soaking wet. And then just to be safe, if you ever have to add water to the bag because it was too dry, you want to make a little hole in the bottom, just a tiny bit, for the water to come out. But yes, this will take about 8 to 12 weeks to root. Now, let's talk about the rooting hormone real quick before I forget. What I like to use when I'm doing a lot of cuttings, Dip and Grow. It's very cheap, and then I can do a lot of cuttings out of it. Does it work any better than any rooting hormone? No, it does not. It's just easier and a lot cheaper for me to use than to use any other type of rooting hormone. Sometimes when I'm only doing a few cuttings, you know, I buy whatever rooting hormone I find at the store, and then anything works. This is powder, so I'm not using powder right now because I have a lot of fake cuttings to do, and then this will not last that long. So you know, I can probably get, I would say, out of this container maybe about 100 to 150 cuttings, so that's not really much. And then if you only use powder, it gets expensive. But if you're only doing a few cuttings, you can go anywhere and buy rooting hormone. The brand is irrelevant, guys. It's all about the active ingredient. This one, it's an indole 3 butyric acid. The concentration, you know, it could be 10%, 0.20%, so it doesn't really matter. Usually every brand's gonna have their own concentration levels, and some say that higher concentration is better. I haven't noticed a difference, so use whatever you can use. It's fine. You don't have to use what I'm using right now. And if you don't use anything, that's fine too. So remember, your plants have the rooting hormone in them. Now, if you can do anything to increase your chances of being successful, why not do it? That's the only reason why I do it. Now remember, this is gonna take 8 to 12 weeks to actually root. You wanna keep it in an area where it's dark, ambient lighting, and then you want it to be warm. The temperature at night, it's the most important out of everything. It's the most important, even more important than any rooting hormone you can ever buy, any potting mix you use, everything. So anyways, guys, and this is how you do your fig cuttings. So let me go ahead and do this, guys, real quick, and then I'll show you what's next. Alright, guys, so this is the last cutting I'm doing right now. I have a bunch more cuttings to do, but I won't show that on camera because it's just gonna take way too long. But anyway, so this guy's right here. I'm just gonna put them inside my house. Good places inside the house is gonna be like your closet, maybe under your bed. They don't have to be pointing up. You can lay them down like this. And let's see what else. Yeah, the closets, under the bed. You can even put them in your attic if you have an attic access and just leave them up there, but just don't forget about them. So what usually happens though, about 2 to 3 months later, 8 to 12 weeks. So what you usually get after 8 to 12 weeks, it's gonna be a cutting like this one right here, guys. This is a raspberry latte fig, and then as you can see, I got roots everywhere. And this is not just the only one, guys. I got a bunch of cuttings right here. I have another one over here. I don't know if you can see the roots in there. As when the roots first start coming out, they're gonna be like a whitish color, even white. But as they get older, they're gonna start turning brown. So these cuttings right here are ready to be potted. And then I sort of forgot about them, so it's my fault. So some of them suffer. I'm gonna show you real quick. So initially I had a little setback. Since I had a lot of cuttings this year, more than I ever done before, I did not have enough room in my garage, and that's where they usually go in the winter time. So the greenhouse, the night temperatures were not consistent. They were dropping way too much. Even though I have a heater in there, it's not strong enough to completely evenly heat the greenhouse at night. So I wasn't paying much attention. I thought they were okay, but that set me back a month because the figs did not do anything for a whole month. Usually within about 30 days to 6 weeks, you may see some roots even if they're small. But after checking them, I did not see anything. Then I had to make some room in my garage, so I filled up my garage all the way with figs, because there was no other way for me to actually get consistent temperatures at night. Our day temperatures here during daytime are always hot, but night temperatures drop drastically. It's the night temperatures that makes your figs actually root, guys. It's not the day temperatures. So do not make that mistake like I did. Even now I still make mistakes. But you know what? Next year I'm gonna have a climate controlled greenhouse, so that won't be a problem anymore. So I took it in the garage, guys, and then I just left them in there. And I sort of forgot about them again. And here in Arizona, guys, there's never in between. We always get extreme temperatures. It's either too hot or too cold. So our day temperatures, you know, they've been getting into the 90s every single day. So my garage has been getting really hot. Now you can tell these figs over here are wilted because the temperatures got too hot too quickly, and the figs did not have time to acclimate to those temperatures. So my poor little growth wilted. Are the figs dead? No, they're not, guys. So what I need to do, I just need to take them out of the bags. I put some water in there because they were drying out. You can tell this fig has roots everywhere in there. So I put some water in there, and then hopefully they'll be okay. You can tell this one's nicely rooted. Look at all those roots in there. But yeah, so I need to pot this, guys, because they're wilting on me and because they're drying out. And the new growth is always sensitive to the heat, to the cold, to everything. You can see all those roots in there, guys. This over here are brown turkey, raspberry lattes right here. Let me bring another container and show you what else I got going on here. Oh, actually there's another one right here. These guys right here these are a tiger panache fig. One thing when making a lot of cuttings, guys, you have to label them, because if you don't, you're gonna have problems. Look, all new roots in there. See how white they are? Another week and they're gonna turn brown. That's just normal for figs. Now you can see the condensation on the bag, guys. It's not really that much in there. I can also feel the weight of the bag. It's actually very light. So I need to water this, guys, because if I don't, all the work that I put into bringing these guys to life is gonna go in the drain, all wasted. So you see all these roots right here. Very nice roots in there. And then everything was done with the bagging method right here. Now some figs, you know, they take longer to root. Like this one doesn't have any roots in there, so it's still green though. You can do the scratch test, and then you can tell. You see how green that is? So you can tell the fig's still alive. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that one out of the bag, maybe put a little more water in there and then stick it somewhere dark, so hopefully it will root. So this one is the same, no roots there. Now this one right here is starting to wilt. But yeah, but you can see it has roots in there. It's just they're drying out. This one's dry actually. So this is the problem, guys. You have to make sure you check your figs, because if you don't, they will die. Especially if you live in an area with extreme temperatures like I do. If you are anywhere else in the US where your temperatures take longer to warm up at night, then obviously your figs are gonna take longer to actually root. But yeah, you can tell the leaves are also yellowish color, so that means this guy is wearing in the darkness a little too long, so they need some sunlight, and I need to up pot these guys. Now let me go ahead and take one out and up pot it in front of you guys to show you the other benefit of using 100% vermiculite. So this fig right here, it's a raspberry latte fig. And you can tell it needs to be uppotted right now, because if I don't, it's just gonna start suffering. Figs, unlike most plants, once they fully root that container or that media they're in, they don't like to grow much, guys. This is why figs don't do well in containers long term. So you need to keep uppotting them, and then it's actually best if you put them in the ground. So what I like to do is, once it's time to uppot them, the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna take your containers outside in the shade. Make sure that direct sunlight doesn't get to them. And then before, I would say a few days before you uppot them, put it in the shade in an area away from the wind, and wait, I would say, 3 to 4, 5 days before you uppot them. So that way your figs, the leaves, are gonna be acclimated to the outside temperatures. They're gonna be semi-acclimated to the wind, and then that way you won't have any problems. Now, the pots that I like to use on my figs personally, it's gonna be these long pots right here. These are called tree pots. This one specifically is 6 inches wide by 12 inches long. Longer is better, because a lot of your fig roots, they usually go straight down and then they spread out. So figs do not really like really short pots. They like longer pots rather than wider, especially if you're gonna keep them in a container. And the reason why we like to put the figs in containers like this, because, well, a lot of people, we rehome our figs and they go all over the US. All right, guys, I got a little interrupted there. Anyways, as I was saying, bag method, figs, they got deeper roots rather than going wide. The only reason these roots are actually going up is because, well, there is nowhere else for the roots to go. Now, another benefit of using 100% vermiculite, it's not just about the fungus and the mold prevention. It's also, when you uppot it, I'll show you. Now, when you uppot your plants, just use any regular potting mix. Figs, to be honest, they don't really care. I never had any issues with potting mix with figs. They can go in anything. But here, my potting mix that we use here at the nursery is just pine bark as the main ingredient, and then we use perlite for compaction prevention, and then we use peat moss for drainage. We do not use peat moss to actually retain more water. We use it for the opposite, which is to actually drain water. The more peat moss you use in your potting mix, the faster it will drain the water. But yeah, even here in the desert, I want drainage, guys. Now, the good thing about the bag system is, let me show you. So once your fig is ready to go, all you gotta do is flip it upside down, and you can see how all the vermiculite is just pouring out. I'm not even doing anything. So all of it is just coming out. And look at that, guys. How isn't that nice right there? That is just beautiful. So now the next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna stick it in there gently. Just hold it with your hand. Let me see if I can just put it in there so you guys can see. I'm gonna try to move those roots down. You can see, remember how I told you a lot of your roots come out of the nodes? So you see roots coming out of there, more roots coming out of that node, and then I had another one right here at the bottom. So yeah, that's the main reason why you want at least 2 to 3 nodes below the soil. Now you can tell in this one I had 1, 2, 3, actually 4 nodes below the soil. And then anything above the potting mix, that's where your actual leaves are gonna grow out of. Anyways, you're gonna just push the roots down in there, don't break them. The good thing about figs also is the root system is not sensitive, so if you do break some of the roots, it's no big deal. So your fig's not gonna die. Now you're just gonna gently just put the potting mix in there, just like this. Just like that, and then just work it in there. You want to shake it, make sure your potting mix is not too wet because it makes it hard to actually, you know, shake it in place. Tap it down, maybe put a little more in there. And the good thing about figs too, guys, is even if you bury the trunk, it's no big deal. Unlike other plants, when you bury the crown, they suffer. Figs grow root out those areas below the soil. And there is a raspberry latte fig. I potted, and this fig right here should be fully rooted in this container in the next 30 days, especially with the night temperatures warming up now. But yeah, guys, so 2 benefits for the Vermiculite is mold and fungus prevention. And then as you've seen, it makes it very easy to actually take them out of the container. But yeah, that's about it. Let me go ahead and get another one, guys, so you can see me potting another fig. Look at that one right there. Man, this is just amazing. Remember, guys, when you're doing a lot of fig cuttings, you want to make sure you label them. We label the cuttings themselves, and then we also label the container they're in, and we're never mixing up. After I completely pot them, I'm gonna make some labels for each individual plant, so that way they're all gonna have their own labels. The worst thing to do when actually growing fig cuttings is mixing them up, and then you don't know what's what, and then that just ruins everything. So we like to keep our varieties completely labeled, so that way there are no mistakes in the future. Anyways, the process is the same. So what I like to do, I like to measure and see where I'm gonna, you know, put the potting mix, up to what level. So I'm gonna fill the area with potting mix right now, about that. And then just like the other one, I'm gonna flip this upside down, and then all that vermiculite will just come out, and then you can take everything out just like that. And look at that. Isn't that beautiful, guys? This is the best part about propagating any plant, guys. We had to prune our figs last year, so you know, all these branches, they would have gone in the trash. But instead of actually you know, wasting and killing a plant, technically that's what you're doing, you can make life, or actually not create life, but you know, help it along. Anyways, so we got our fig right there. Just stick it in the container, hold it in place with your hands, and just like that, completely. There we go, guys, and there you have it. Tap it down, make sure you compact everything down. If you don't get it right, next time you water, you know, it's just gonna settle down anyway. All right, guys, so let's say you don't want to do the baggie method. Maybe you want to do something else. I'm gonna give you a few pointers that hopefully are gonna help you out if you want to try something else. So I had so many cuttings, I did not have enough bags, I ran out of space. So what I did, I tried rooting them straight in vermiculite like this. Did it work? Yes and no. Now the problem when you have it in an open space like this, you can tell how dry this is. It was my fault these figs did not take. Now, are these figs completely dead? Some of them are. Some of the thicker ones, you know, they're still green. You can see, you can scratch, and that's a cambium layer. If it's green, it's still alive. Now, the reason these guys did not take a lot of, at least a lot of them didn't. I have some in here that actually took. Let me show you if I can find it. You can see I have a root in there, and then let's see what else. You can see this one right here took fully, so I'm gonna go ahead and pot this one. This one was towards the middle. Now the main reason this open, I guess, container method failed is because, for one, I did not check, so that is my fault. The potting mix completely dried out, so if your cuttings don't have any amount of moisture around them, they're gonna dry out on you and they're gonna die, just like this one right here. So this is my fault, guys. So yeah, so if you're gonna try an open method like this, it works. This is proof right here that it works, but you have to make sure, I would say every week or every 2 weeks, go there and check it and make sure that it actually stays moist and not wet. So it's hard to actually water this correctly, because once the cuttings are in there, you're gonna have to overhead water, and it's hard to tell when it's too much or when it's too little. But in my case, it was my mistake. These guys went dry on me. I forgot about them, and then this is what happened. These guys are Italian honey figs, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna check the ones that are good to go still, and then I'm gonna use the bags since I'm recycling them, and then I'm gonna take them inside the house, in the closet somewhere where it's dark and warm, and then hopefully they will root still. When making cuttings, it's always a race between how fast your cutting will actually shoot roots to sustain itself before it runs out of energy. So these guys, I can tell they're lighter, so their moisture content on them is a lot lower than it used to be. But hopefully, they're gonna be able to make it. I'm gonna give them another chance, since it's not their fault that they didn't take, it's mine. And a lot of them actually started rooting, and then I guess that's what happens when you don't check. But yeah, so if you want to put in an open container like this, it works. Just make sure you keep it moist, not let it fully dry. And then the good thing about this, remember, no mold or fungus, and that's going to be the main killer of figs, especially for a lot of people growing fig cuttings. And in our experience, all figs will root, guys, all of them. We have had 100% success chance on fig cuttings, propagating all varieties, that is. Now, you have to understand, plants are just like you and I, so they're all different. If you only have one cutting, guys, and then it's a very expensive, unique cutting, you can do the rooting method, but it's not 100% guarantee that it will root on you. The more cuttings you have, the higher your chances. So if you only have one, and it's a very expensive fig, I'm gonna recommend to put like a little humidity dome up on the top. Keep it humid, not too wet, and then that will actually encourage the fig to root. Think of it as a baby that needs a little help. How do you put the little incubator on top and all that good stuff? Yeah, you're doing the same thing for your fig, especially if you have a special variety that you don't want to root. Now, if you really worry about your fig cutting rooting, then at that point, guys, you can do grafting. Grafting is very easy with these guys. Remember, they can stay alive for weeks. The longer your cuttings stay alive, the easier it is to actually graft them. So yeah, you can do grafting. It's very easy. I can show grafting videos in the future. But that's about it, guys. And remember, you see those guys that wilted on me? It's because the temperatures in my garage, they got really hot. The fig cuttings did not have enough time to acclimate, and that's what happened. And that's usually here unique in Arizona. I just need a climate control environment where I can keep the temperatures around 60 to 70 degrees, and that will be amazing. I will probably get 100% rooting out of my fig cuttings if I had an environment that's climate controlled, but I don't, so I have to deal with nature. Alright guys, so that's the end of the video. Just as a quick summary, when propagating figs, the best time to propagate them is going to be during the winter time, because that's when they're dormant. When your fig trees are dormant, the energy consumption goes way down, and when you take cuttings, they last a lot longer. Remember, you can graft them any time of the year, so it's no big deal, but your chances of being successful are always going to be higher in the winter time than during the growing season. Once you get your cuttings, the main thing to remember out of this whole video are actually the potting mix. Make sure you use Vermiculite. Make sure it's not too wet. Make sure it's not too dry. If it's too dry, your fig cuttings are going to dry out like the ones you saw earlier. If it's too wet, they are going to rot. But yeah, Vermiculite is very easy to use, very cheap. You can make tons of cuttings and you don't need much of it. A lot easier and better to use than any other potting mixes I've tried in the past. Remember, your fig cuttings are gonna root depending on your night temperatures. The hotter the night temperatures, the faster your cuttings will root. So you're looking for about 60, 70 degrees at night. The only places you're gonna get those temperatures during the winter time is going to be inside your house or a climate controlled greenhouse. Day temperatures are completely irrelevant. Remember, I lost a month this year because I put them in the greenhouse and my night temperatures were not consistent, so my fig cuttings did not root for a whole month. Did they die? No, they did not, guys. Remember, they were dormant. And since they were dormant, they were not using any energy, so they just sat there and did nothing until I realized my mistake, and then I put them in the garage. After I put them in the garage, it took about 4 weeks before I started noticing roots, and now what you see now, it's about 10 weeks after I put them in the garage. So wait until your fig cuttings grow leaves. I showed you earlier what they look like once they're fully rooted. Do not wait too long because then your figs are gonna take damage. Check the bags every week or so. Once you start seeing roots, just make sure they don't fully dry out on you. If they dry out on you, just like any other plant, it will run out of water, it will wilt and die. But hopefully this video helps you out, guys. You don't have to use the materials that I'm using. You don't have to use anything that I'm showing you today. But if you're watching me today, you're probably wondering how to be successful growing fig cuttings, and you probably tried in the past and you failed. I know I did. I started from nothing, guys. So everything that I'm showing you, I learned through trial and error. We grow hundreds of cuttings every year here, and not all of them take, because plants are just like you and I. So most of the ones that do not take is because of mistakes I made. So I showed you earlier the open container method. They failed because they dry on me. So it wasn't them. It wasn't the cuttings themselves that they're not root. It was me. So usually when my cuttings don't root, 99% are mistakes that we make, not the cuttings themselves. That 1% it's just because the cutting was just not meant to root, and then it just life happens. Hopefully this helps you guys. If you have any questions, you can comment below. If you like my videos, subscribe, and then yeah, hopefully this helps you out, and then I will see you next time, guys.